Okay, so hello everybody. I'm Sheila from UbiMinds, and I'm excited that we're having a new season of Ubitalks. It's been a while, but we finally have everybody back talking. If this is the first time you're checking in, every Thursday we have a new recording either on our podcast or on our YouTube channel. And we bring great people in tech and careers in tech and people passionate about people to talk about how to build better products, how to build stronger teams. And we have, very good people, very good ideas here all the time. So this week, to open our new season, we have Alberto. He has been our first customer at UbiMinds. His one team, one heart philosophy is very much in line with what we believe is the future of tech careers, right? We want smart people working together, reaching for common goals. You'll find he's very passionate, energetic. He's really a hands-on leader. He wrote the book, literally, on distributed teams. And basically, I'm just going to hand it over to him so he can tell you how you can also build like very successful team, people that are going to be passionate about what they're working on and are going to help develop, better products and deliver more value to your end users. Alberto, it's over to you. And I'm not sure if I left anything out, so please go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you for the opportunity. Hello, familiar faces. For those that I don't know. Very nice to meeting you. I will share my screen here, and so we can get the ball rolling. Just give me 1 second. I think this is the one. Can you see my screen? I guess the answer is yes.
Yep, we can see it.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So for those that don't know me, I'm very, very passionate and about people, processes, and you probably heard once or twice. I'm passionate about building and building teams. I correlate a lot of that. The sailing and the team sports with the building teams for digital products. Currently, I'm the head of engineering at LawnStarter, and most recently, no, it's been a year already. Yeah, published a book on the topic of building high performance teams. Some of the people in the call actually not only helped me, but inspire me to be writing those practices to the world. So it's a pleasure to be in a talk where I have like an audience that know exactly what I'm talking about in so many ways. So, why we're here today? We're gonna be zooming out, and and the whole idea is to look things from like a different perspective. I think we've been a lot in Zoom, and I think it's time for us to pause and reevaluate how we've been building products and teams. So we need to think about a lot more about the people, the connections, and honestly, how can we get the most of each one? So that's what's basically the ask is just forget about what we've been doing for like a long time, step out, and let's try to look with fresh eyes. So starting with a very simple question, what's the most important, crucial element of building a successful product? Yes, the answer is actually written down bottom. It's people, right? So, but if the answer is people, we need to invest more time, and especially as leaders or anyone on the team, we have to have like that mindset. And hiring and retaining, it's equally important. But today, in today's presentation, we're going to just be focusing on hiring. So think about this. The world has changed a lot. Technology has changed. We just came out for like a world pandemic. So what makes us think that the traditional hiring is still or has been effective, right? If everything else around us has been changing, think about like the interview process. Think like the interview process when you started your career and how it's today. It might be 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years ago. And I think like the way that I like to say is like, the life is too short for you to spend time. And we spend most of our time like in our lives at work. So I always suggest and recommend people that spend their time wisely, because that's the only thing that you can never go back in life. It's time. So I will bring like a little bit of the concept of like meaningful jobs, where you bring like mission-centric roles, and where you wake up excited about come to work. That is what makes the ride a little bit more fun. So let me ask you all a little bit. Historically, for you that have been as an engineer, as a product, as a designer, or any career, but in specifically this one, if you're like an engineer, how has been the interview process for software engineer?
Alberto, sorry to just bother you a little bit. We're seeing your chat window in front of your slides. So when we're sharing this video later, we're going to be able to see that as well.
Sorry, what am I doing wrong?
Your chat window, I think. Okay, never mind.
Okay, if I'm doing something wrong, which is totally possible, you let me know. So, but historically, interviews, the interview process for historically up to today, many companies and many leaders are still doing this. There's an obsession about the technical piece. It's either pair programming, it's either like home projects, write code in a whiteboard. That came kind of slowed down after we moved away from central office, say a centralized office. Or even like maybe like solving non-practical puzzles. You know, like the implementing the reverse binary tree was one of my quote unquote favorite, palindromy and so many others, cracking the code interview, and all that kind of stuff. But all that focus on technical, but little to no investment on building trust. If you think about why referrals are good and typically good, it's because there's like, I trust you and that trusts somebody else. So the referrals are good because there's like trust, just so you can actually think a little bit more about it. But the technical obsession and the trust, they are completely or mostly unbalanced. So let me share like a quick video. Not sure if you actually ever watched this video. It's a 30 seconds video. Oops. From Simon Sinek, which says the following. They drew a graph for me, and on one side they wrote the word performance, and on the other side they wrote the word trust. The way they put it is, I may trust you with my life, but do I trust you with my money and my wife? They're SEALs. This is what they told me. Nobody wants this person, the low performer, low trust, of course. Everybody wants this person, the high performer with high trust. What they learned is that this person, the high performer with low trust, is a toxic leader and a toxic team member. And they'd rather have a medium performer of high trust, sometimes even a low performer of high trust scale, over this person. This is the highest performing organization on the planet, and this person is more important than this person. In business, we have a million metrics to measure someone's performance and negligible to no metrics to measure someone's trustworthiness. Were you able to, what was too low? Were you able to get it? Yeah, thank you, Ariel. Appreciate it, thumbs up. So on that graph, on the top right, high performance, low trust, you know who that person is? That's the asshole in the team. That's exactly what that is. No one wants that person. And the current interview process and practice focus a lot on the high performance. And there's non-negligible, as Simon says, it's on the trust. So I love this video, and I love. Let me just move to the next one here. So I will share like very quickly. This is like a true story. And by the way, everything that I share like in this presentation is basically like a true story that I've been through, and my over 2 decades on being on this journey. But I think his video, it's so true, right? And this story, this is about myself early in my career, which kind of like when I look back, made me to pursue like this career and trying to make things different for whenever I became a lead. But there was this time, very early in my career, I was still in Brazil, where I'm originally from, and one of my dreams, it was actually work for like an American company. Back in the day, even people would say that the world was globalized. It wasn't as globalized as it today. And I did, in 7 months time frame, I did 7 interviews. And I failed in 7 attempts. There was a point that I thought, oh my goodness, I'm actually, yes, doesn't matter what my mom says, I think I'm done. And I eventually actually ended up getting an offer when I tried for like the 8th time. And I don't know why they actually ended up giving me an offer. I'm not sure if it was mercy or persistence or whatever that was. But the question is, why did I have to do this so many times? Was I like that bad? Maybe it was my English communication, my culture, or like, I don't know. Maybe the big cultural difference. And then the truth is, and many years later, I look back, was none of it. Even the best engineers, they bomb an interviews. And I was early in my career, but I was pretty decent developer. And even though I wouldn't pass, but the problem wasn't just with me. It was the environment that I was. And the interviewers actually didn't know how to conduct a proper interview. And as any other relationship, it's important that both sides are like in a good alignment. But then I said, you know what? When I was building this presentation, I said, let me just think about what happened. There was a lot of time and mental commitment. The tech exercise that they would ask me that didn't have like any real connection with like the real world. And I was graduated in computer science. I went through all the classes that you can possibly think in 5 years. So I kind of like knew how to build like from the foundation, from assembly language to like building compilers to all that kind of stuff. But even though like the questions that they would ask, there was, you know, I even asked like if the interview would know the answer for those questions. And the worst part, I never got like any feedback why I failed. We just say, oh, we apologize, and many times not even that, but you're not the perfect fit. Why am I not the perfect fit? I don't know. 20 years later, I Googled this when I was building this presentation maybe a month or so ago. And guess what? Over 2 decades ago, and people are still talking about the same thing. Am I the only one who hates pair programming interviews? Why software engineer interviews become more difficult and complex? Will the trend ever end? Very good question, Jordan. Why are so many software engineers interview just ridiculous and necessary? Not only do Google. Have software engineering interviews evolved over the past 2 decades? There's absolutely no way I could pass the code interview. You Google it, you're gonna see how many people talk about this. And then, okay, here's my conclusion. Interviews are intimidating. That's how I was Alberto, like the little puppy with like 1,000 question marks with all those interviewing. I moved to New York, lived 16 years later. I lived for 16 years there. I've been to so many interviews. I interviewed for all the big blue companies and smaller companies as well, different. And they all have some sort of like the lion and the puppy. And that is like, what is the point of like surprising candidates with irrelevant questions? I honestly don't get it. I don't get it. Because if you're interviewing, you're like in a privileged, you're literally in a privileged position. People talk about inclusion and all that kind of stuff, but they keep doing the same thing. You're a privileged position and you are actually the lion on the room. And why you do that still? So then here's how I like to think about it. Treat people as like the person that you're interviewing, as they are like a guest in your own house. Treat them well, make them comfortable. Because if the person being interviewed feels intimidated, like the puppy, they are not giving the best version of themselves. So when we look at some data, think about this. Female, this is a research conducted by Medaville. They are also building a software and technology and practice to help the interview process. And I will share all the references I have like a slide with all the references and links that you can check. But female candidates, they can get 12% less talk time during interviews. So what? So the question is, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to say, Alberto? I said, well, if female candidates are getting less airtime during interviews, it's more likely that the decisions are being made based on other than the interview performance. There's this company called like PwC, they perform like a poll, and only 26% of jobs in computing for software engineers are held by women in the United States. This is as 2021. And women apply 20% fewer jobs than men. Yes, women are a little bit more selective. Why? It's because the intimidating process. This last part, it's my perspective, my own opinion, and I think that's what happens. So if you want to think and talk about, you know, having a more diverse team, or you want to have like hire the best person for the job, regardless who they are, but you want to give like a fair, think about your interview process. The first impression matter. As any other relationship, think about it. The first impression matter. You like the little one team on heart holding? I love that. 9% of professionals in general, not only software engineers, says that the interview experience can change their mind about the company. If you have like a bad experience on the first impression, that candidate may not even choose to buy your product, may not even choose to ever interview, and they're going to go back to the community and their friends and talk about how your interview process sucks. So are you tired of this traditional hiring process? Do you have energy to actually go and be honest with yourself? Answer the question, like when you have to go through like you need to actually, you think it's time for you to do something different. Don't you actually think, okay, here we go. It's time to go like to the interview process again. It's exhausting. So if you are like a hiring manager, do you really trust your own process? How happy and comfortable will you be to, you know, for you to go through your own process? Would you be delighted? I wasn't delighted with mine for many years. I think we did lots of things right, but we did a lot of things wrong. And I tried so many different, from home projects to all that kind of stuff. I tried it all. as far as I can tell. There's always a new thing, but from third-party platforms and all that kind of stuff. And the best people that I hired, it's always because we had the opportunity to know more about each other. And guess what? We changed jobs and we're still in connection. And you can see for some of the team members here, like in the audience. So the traditional interview process may hire the best candidate doesn't get the job. The candidate that interviews best is the one, but that's not necessarily the one that will help you to build the product that customers love. So you know what I learned over all these years? Yeah, it's broken. It's broken. Just start shredding that. Start over. I think the more I think, well, besides the fact that when I started this journey on writing software and building products, from mainframe technology to mobile to all the kind of stuff, it doesn't matter the technology. There's always a new framework. There's always a new, you might be doing blockchain technology today. You might be doing front end. You may be doing back end, whatever you do. There's always going to be new technology. What matters at the end of the day is the people behind. We are talking right now, and let's not talk about age, otherwise I would be in the advantage here, but we have different generations, and we need to adapt and change in order to get the best people in the team. Humanize your interview process. Interviewing is not a pure function. The same input will produce the same output. Do you guys remember what a pure function is if you're like a software engineer? As a reminder, like a pure function is the function that will always give the same output with the same input and has no side effects. And that interviews are not like that. Even though you can actually create a repeatable process, even though you can actually measure and repeat, all that is possible. But every human being will be slightly different. So here's, and I get this quote from the Who book, which is hire people based on who they are, not on what they can show off in an interview. People definitely must feel comfortable so they can give the best version of themselves. I actually have a survey now in my interviews, regardless if you get an offer or not. And it's a survey of 2 questions, but it's actually 1 question and on a free form. But the question is, did you feel comfortable throughout the process where you could share what you really know and who you really are? If the answer is like scale from 0 to 5, if the answer is like anything less than 4, it's an opportunity for like the interview team and myself to change the practice and ask why. The true fact is this, folks, the more both sides know, the longer and healthier the relationship will be. That's a win-win, because it's a win for the candidate, it's a win for the team, and win for the product that we are building, and win for the user. So it's a win-win-win-win. With that, and I'm moving slightly faster than I would, because I really want to cover this for the folks that need to leave a little earlier. I will share 5 steps that after over 2 decades interviewing people and being interviewed, I decided to come up with. And I'm not reinventing the wheel. What I'm doing is getting like my experience from my failures, from the things that worked, and I want to share back with you, with the community, so you can actually maybe try 1, 2, or all of them, or even come up with a solution or with some feedback, and maybe tell me like something else or a combination that worked for you. So first and foremost, the COVID and all this pandemic didn't change a thing. All the pandemic did was to accelerate a trend that was unavoidable. So hire the best candidate, regardless where they are or who they are, and all that kind of stuff. It was back in the day that you needed to see people's face every day in an office. There's different careers and different professionals. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about software, building digital products. Even a good friend of mine recently, I'm not sure if you guys know, it's called Elon Musk. Have you heard about him? Good friend of mine. Jokes aside, he made like the polemic of like everyone needs to go back to the office. Let's not forget that he sells cars, so like the more people in commuting, it's definitely like a great advantage for him. But that's not the point. The point is that it's proven that you can hire the best people as long as you do not compromise collaboration. So it's proven that people from different perspectives can help in building a better product. You don't need people to always be agreeing with you. In fact, you want people that will challenge the status quo. And it's proven that from people from different geographies and different locations can actually help with that diversity in the team. So yes, widen the net. Different from your personal preferences. Beyond your professional network. And I say that out loud to myself. I love to have people that I know, and it's great, but you have to mix and match with new blood and new perspectives. Otherwise, you become, you might bring too much bias. Try new educational systems. I've been able to hire successful engineers, successful people, and they didn't went through the same educational system that I went through. They didn't have like 5 years computer science, but I gave it the opportunity. And you may call me, or one may call me lucky, but I never regretted the people that I hired. And even when I hired wrong, failing fast, it's super important. I think it's fascinating the obsession that people have to find the perfect people. And we are humans. There's no perfect, but there's open communication. There's open, honest feedback. There's adaptability. And there's the opportunity to say, yes, we tried and it didn't work. Let's move on. And this goes without saying, just go beyond your regional and national borders. Important to highlight, as long as you do not compromise collaboration. And it's important that you have like, everyone on the same page, your team, your hiring team, your referrals, your HR or people team. I should probably name like my slide here to people team. I hate calling humans resource. So this is like a improvement for my slides. Yes, I'm talking about partners, Ubiminds, great partners of mine for many years, for many of you here as well. Thank you for like all these years of loyalty and being aligned and continuous improvement. And I'm sorry if sometimes I'm a pain in the neck as well, but it's necessary. Who here is familiar with the DISC? All right, a few hands. So here's what the DISC is. It's a personal assessment tool used by millions of people out there to help improving them teamwork, communication, productivity in the workplace. All sounds great. The reality is that people use DISC after the person is being hired. Many times years after. In my last job, I didn't take the DISC 4 years in. So the question that I have is, if the DISC is a personality test assessment, why not shift that to the left? How many things we have shifted to the left? We shift quality to the left. We shift security to the left. We shift so many things to the left. Why? Because the earlier we know, the better. So why not shift it to the left? The ability for us humans to know about each other sooner in the process. So I will not go deep on what the disc like each one, but just think about, if you know me, you're gonna know that I'm actually on the yellow, super yellow. It's enthusiastic. One may say that inspiring, whatever. I like to speak with my heart. I like to lead with my heart. I care about people many times more about everybody else than even myself, and I feel good with it. But that is not everyone else. A lot of engineers are like on the blue, or on the green, or on the red. What the disc does, and I've been successfully been doing this, is putting this even before the first conversation with the candidate. And thanks to Ubitalk for partnering with me on this experiment. And it's been so great. Why? Because the candidate knows about the person, each person that's going to be talking prior to the interview. The interviewer knows more about the candidate. And here's what it does. It decreases the gap between who's being interviewed and the person that is interviewing. So the person that's interviewing with the person that's being interviewed. And that creates an environment that the person feels like the guest in your home. They're more comfortable. They can actually think about the problem. They can think about the answer without being afraid, without having, I learned a term in English recently, brain fart. Brain fart is literally the situation where when you are tense, nervous, or anxious about a particular situation that you are exposed, especially myself as a second English as a second language, those situations cause brain fart. You know the answer, but because you're like on that particular situation, you don't know anymore. You actually lose it. You lose the thought. So the more both sides of the relationship know about each other, the better. So number 3, and I will go, where's number 3? Who is familiar with the Who book, which is right here on my background? It's one of my favorites, right next to mine, which is here. It's so hard to actually move on the mirror. But the book Who, if you haven't checked, it provides like a series of 30, 40 competencies. I actually made a combination and chose my own. You have to identify what are the group of competencies that everyone in your team must have. And I have my team members here, some of my team members that work with me these days. And each one of you mastered on these ones. Energy and drive. One thing that I do not tolerate when I'm actually building teams, it's walking dead. I need people with energy. I need people with grit. Grit is the ability for a stick, like things will go wrong. How you deal when things go wrong? Do you get stressed or can you actually recover and actually talk with calm, respect, and overcome challenge? I love people that care. And the more you talk with people, you can know if they care. Because if you don't care about your own stuff, why you would care about the other people's stuff, or why you care? I find fascinating, like when people ask for promotions, but they don't care about the product. They don't care about the company that they are in. So the self-awareness, the impact, teamwork, curiosity, people that ask questions and ask why, I love it. So my point here is you define this set of like competencies, and there's what is called MAR, which is the minimum acceptable rate. You cannot expect that everyone would actually master each one of this. There's some people that are better than others in some, but there's the minimum acceptable rate. So for each one of these, you may say it's okay to be a 3, and then we can work on it. But depending on your position, you need to be 4 in some of this. But have this very well socialized with your interview team. And the more you have it, the better alignment you will have. And whenever you go through the who process, then you're gonna actually be able to actually get that from the candidate. So here's how the who process actually works. My interview process these days is like this. We do the disc, we get the assessment, which is a 15 minutes investment. It's not a home away project where you need, like you were asking the person to take like the weekend away from their families. No, it's not that. It's 15 minutes. We're gonna know where in the disc you are. All the managers and the people that interview also take that test. So now we do the credit. The second, you define that core competence. That's a one-time effort or continuous improvement. You're gonna get to a point where you feel comfortable. The third is a 2 hours investment. Many candidates say, I don't have 2 hours investment. Well, if you're actually talking about like a long-term relationship and you don't have like a 2 hours investment for us to talk, up to 2, then probably you're not the right fit right away. But in this 2 hours investment, I like to talk about the early years. And I like to know who were your key influencers. I want to know who made the person that you are today. Is your dad, your family, your grandpa? The answer doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong. But we want to actually go back on the person's and build that psychological safety environment. What were you known for back then? When I tried to answer that question myself, when I went through the process for the first time, I said, well, I was the person that wanted to sell everything at home. My parents would get pissed with me, like, where is that, piece of furniture? Sorry, Dad, I sold it. I would sell everything. I was not like just to actually talk with people and selling stuff. What impact does that have in my life today? I don't know. I think I think it was the passion for talking. Many people say I was a nerd, or many people say something else. But anyways, these early years is so important for you and the candidate to know more about each other. And then here's the transition, like what is like the biggest highlights and lowlights of your early years, And interesting enough, this question can start to bring some aspects of psychological aspects about self-awareness. And this should take no more than 10, 15, 20 minutes if the conversation goes really well. That's the first part of like the who conversation. And then here's how we do. We build a repeatable, measurable process for the rest of the conversation. And I will go like relatively quick throughout these questions, but I will just go very quickly here. But what were you hired to do? You will not believe the number of people that don't know how to answer this question. You start in a job and you don't know what you were hired to do. Who did you report to? I personally like to refer to people by their first name and last name, or not and, first or last. And I usually get that for references later, but I ask like for references later, but how was your team organized? Were you like a solo contributor, or like you work with product design? And how did you collaborate with them? Many times I get engineers like, yeah, no, I wrote my code, I pushed my code, I approved my code, and then I actually was, everything was great, nothing broken. All right, okay. Maybe the environment is not very aligned with the environment that I like to actually have. Or maybe, yes, no, I was able to collaborate with like whatever special or discipline or even departments to actually get to build the product. I love this question number 4. That was for those from Schoology. That was the question that my former boss actually asked, and I incorporated in from a light bulb to a happy face, which is the customer. How do you build software? How did you do on that particular position? It's a very open question. And here you can find like people that just say, I built it, I did it, I was awesome, or we did it. So you start to find patterns if that person is going to be a good fit or not. And then what like the contributions if your team built that product, and I'm so glad that you're so proud and passionate about it, but what did you do? And like tell me like one challenge and how did you overcome? And if you work like for a year, 2 years, 3 years in a job, you're gonna have like so many things to talk, but pick one. And why that one? The number 7 is actually pretty interesting. How did your manager or your team members around you would rate your performance? I've interviewed people that say 10 out of 10 for every single job in a career. Say, wow, I just met a genius. There's no geniuses, you know, like people make mistakes, but self-awareness is something that I really value in my teams. Especially when you ask like, what are your strengths and do you know your weaknesses? What do you want? What's your dream job going forward? So in this 2-hour conversation, I'm at the point that my teams are 90% confidence. After doing this, they will pass it in the interview, on the technical interview. They pass the who, 90% are passing the technical interview. They join the team and they've been successful. And we didn't even talk about the technical interview, which is next. The technical interview I do after the who. Why? Because now we know about each other. And I don't want to actually, you know, interviewing, it's very expensive. But if you have to make the investment, if you want to build a team. Oops. The technical interview, it's very simple. No surprise policy. No one in my teams will present a piece of code that the candidate has not seen prior to the interview. That's the goal. Why? Remember of the brain fart, right? We don't want anyone to have like the brain fart. We want people that they can actually think about it. I want the technical interview to be an environment where we can have a very productive very productive conversation. Sorry. If the conversation is not productive, then we are defeating the purpose of like a technical interview. We are not actually talking about how a day-to-day is going to be. So in preparation for the technical interview, we and my teams, we request a piece of code that you wrote in the past. I don't care, you can anomalize that, you can actually remove PII. I honestly don't care what code that is and what language that is. That doesn't matter. But it has to have like a few things. It has to be a piece of code that you feel proud, or you felt proud, or you don't like. Very simple. When the person brings that piece of code, we will be talking about that code. How did you test? How you actually build, how you make like, what would you do different this time? Why you think that is good? Why you think that's bad? How would you architect this different? What happens if something would go wrong here? And in that conversation, we are talking about like the person's code. So believe it or not, many times people don't know to talk about their own code. But that's become more rare and rare. After the who process, we can actually get a lot of like this fake ads or fake news, and we really get like the really great engineers. But all I want to say here, do not surprise during a technical interview. Don't come up with problems that could lead to brain farts. Last but not least, this is the last step on the interview process, which is the focus interview. This is the opportunity for like engineers. I like to create this collaborative environment, and as I like to say, and I state in the book, the Iron Triangle, which came from my very talented people in my previous company that inspired me to write about the Iron Triangle, which is product, design, and engineering working together. And this is the step where the other disciplines will be talking with that person and evaluating against the core competencies, the energy and drive, the grit, the ownership. Will be very open-ended conversations, but it's the opportunity for both sides and for the candidate in specific to know the people that they're going to be working against. At the end of the day, the group is greater than the sum of its parts. The decision must be respectful, measurable, but not made by committee. If you try to find a consensus of everyone in the team, you are losing great candidates. You are passing on great candidates. It's important that everyone that actually talk with the person provide their feedback, account the measurable accountabilities, but the decision is the hiring manager to make. And people should not feel bad about it. Oh my goodness, I said that this person is kind of like not very good, maybe on the grid, but the hiring manager decided to make the decision. That is okay, unless the hiring manager cannot answer to the concerns for that feedback. Then totally agree, but do not make decisions by committee. Allowing the fail fast. Many people insist on finding the unicorn. I've been to the beach on like full moon with my daughter and trying to find a unicorn, and I couldn't. That doesn't exist. Hopefully she doesn't listen to that right now. But it's important that the fail fast mindset. And last but not least, provide the feedback to the candidate if they get an offer or not. Please do not let people without giving constructive feedback. Be respectful. Be transparent from the beginning to end. People deserve like respect. We will be building a better society, everything better with if we can provide those feedbacks. The 5 key takeaways that I want actually to wrap up the presentation is widen the net, hire the best regards where they are, embrace the fair play, the no surprise policy. This is a super important one. Just don't make to others what you wouldn't like to others to do to you. That's what my mom and dad would say when I was a kid, and I still carry on my heart with me. Make it repeatable. The whole process provides a repeatable process because you keep repeating and measuring in a consistent way. Mark earlier said that he likes consistency. The whole process provides a framework to be consistent. I strongly recommend you to check on the book, the Who book, which I have in the references. Turnover is expensive. So humanize the process. This is the person that you're going to be talking every day for like a long time, hopefully. The tech jobs have 25 to 30% turnover rate. Imagine that you invest the time interviewing, you do like all those technical questions, you bring the person on board, and the person becomes a high performance, but a low trust. He becomes the asshole. You're going to have to let the person go, or the person won't fit, and that is expensive. Uber has 1.8 years as far this like end of 2021 statistics. Every year and a half, like Uber is 1.8, Dropbox 2, Tesla was 2.6 until a couple of weeks ago. It's expensive, so invest the time to knowing the candidates and allowing the candidates to know about you and get excited about the product that you're. I find it fascinating, like people want, like I want like a senior engineer XYZ. Yes, but engineers, they can choose the jobs that they want. We're living in a globalized world. If they are not connected with the team, the people, and the mission of your company, they will not, like, money is far, this is like old, you know, but it's far from being the most attractive element for people to choosing a job. It's important, but there's many others. So people and relationships being the number one. We can't expect better if we keep doing the same old. That's where I leave for today. There's some additional materials and references. You can ask, I think, Shayla and UbiMinds, please. I don't know where, like, I can just share the link, or I guess, but of course, many of you already know about my book. There's the Who book, also available. Check it out. The book carries a lot of more not complicated, but there's a lot there. Everything that I presented here, it was over the years adapting, and you might find a better combination that works for yourself. Definitely thank you, UbiMinds. You guys being amazing. Thank you to all UbiMinders that are here, that are part of my team. You guys are awesome. Love to work with you every day, and keep the great work. Some of the references, all the data, all things about the DISC profile, which is the one that I have here, it's free. All the data about the statistics and female on the workforce. It's always interesting, and I've been like, oh, we don't have, like, you know, female engineers. They are out there. We just need to actually change how we do things. But keep that in mind. And I myself and my teams constantly keeping that in mind, and encourage the best for the job, regardless who they are. And with that, thank you. A change is needed, and that starts with you, with me, and with all of us. Thank you all.
Alberto, thank you very much, and thanks everybody that was holding with us until the end. I think there's a lot of very important takeaways here. First of all, you know, if we want to build a trusted relationship, we have to be fair, and we have to have an even playing field, right? That's one thing. The second thing I'm definitely taking with me is, you know, when we you know, write a job description, or when we're interviewing a candidate, we're very much focused on what's in it for us, right? As a business. Let's start thinking about what's in it for the candidates as well. So let's talk about not just the compensation, but let's start talking about the purpose and the meaningfulness of what they're doing, and also how exciting the challenges are when they are working with peers they admire, or with new technologies, or with, you know, innovation that's changing their industry. So thank you very much for that, Alberto. I think we have a lot of food for thought there. And also, I want to invite you guys to follow up with us. So every Thursday we have, you know, on YouTube, we have on most of our podcast platforms. You can follow the next couple of Ubitalks. This season, we're starting to focus a lot on meaningful jobs. So what does that mean? How do companies make that more attractive to candidates? What should candidates look for when they're looking to, you know, evolve with their career a little bit more in the long term? And also, we're going to bring in other CDOs, just like Alberto. So they're going to bring in, you know, some challenges they're facing on their teams or in developing the product, how they've worked together in solving them. So plenty of good stuff. If you guys follow us on social, lots going on.
Yeah, and Sheila, definitely I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. I went a little bit fast. I'm not sure how we are doing on time, but I definitely have the time to answer any questions. And one ask that I have for all of you, and if you do decide to make a change, and if you think that makes sense, please let's keep the communication channel. I would love to hear what you tried, what worked, what didn't work. But if we agree on the foundation that the tradition and the old sucks, or I shouldn't say that there's an opportunity for change there, then let's talk how we can do that better.
Yeah, and just in case anybody is curious or wants to follow up, you can write to ubiminds@ubiminds, and we're happy to forward the presentation, put you guys in contact with Alberto or experts in our team as well. So like no questions are left unanswered.
All right.
Okay.
So happy to see Tommy Small here, Perry, Peter. Wow, this is like just like the lots of Tommy. How are you, Tommy? Rodrigo, Peter, I love your shirt.
I just turned the camera on to tell you that I like yours.
Oh, let me see.
Good.
Thank you very much. You have a good taste for t-shirts. All right. Anyone? Any questions? All right.
Yeah, I've got one, if you don't mind. I was kind of curious about, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. I can.
Okay. Regarding having people bring a piece of their own code, I was thinking like, how would I do that? And so much of what I do is collaborating with teams, right? And so, and also I try to encourage my teams to make those commits smaller and smaller and more frequent. And so it might be really difficult to tease apart my contributions to a code base. So how do you, if a candidate brings up that kind of concern, how do you guide them with respect to what code to bring?
You mean about like the practice? And by the way, I love the frequent small commits. Many years ago, come up with like the first version, what I call like the dev charter, and that was like the number one, frequent and small commit. So I really like that one, Tommy. We are very aligned on that. So, but you're asking more towards to if they bring their own piece of code and how you would actually bring the conversation up and figure out if they actually have that mindset of frequent and small. Is that what you're?
No, I'm saying if they're contributing to a code base with a team, and the team is good at frequent small commits, their code is going to be just interspersed, with lots of other people's code. And so how, like, if they're in a situation like that where the code they bring is going to also be a lot of other people's code, like, is that an okay situation?
That's real life, right? That's real life. Like when we are like in our day-to-day, there's not a single file or single code. At least it shouldn't be owned by a single person, right? Yeah. That's but I think like the point, Tommy, it's a very good question, and we want like the person to be able to talk about any code that they've been part of. And you can actually get during that session. I think that every code that's being written, it is a good code. It is serving its purpose, and the person that wrote that code had its best intention at the time. So I think in my teams, like, doesn't matter who wrote it. You don't want the kind of person that's gonna blame the previous person that wrote that code. So if during that technical interview, I'm actually, hey, let's talk about how you tested this. Oh, that wasn't me. That was like somebody else. And this, like, it's already giving you signals if you want that person in your team or not. But at the end of the day, there's many ways of actually giving that answer. But I say, well, we didn't have the knowledge at the time, and then we didn't have the practice of testing. But here's how I would do it today. Okay, that's a much better answer. So I don't think the code being completely from the person or not matters. But what matters is the person to be comfortable enough to be talking about the different aspect of software development and practices that will make a productive conversation that you would get a feel how that would be on the day-to-day. And you can even say, okay, let's get like this little piece here, and let's try to do like a pseudo code on how you would make like this remote call more resilient. You know, but that would be a follow-up or an improvement from that. Depending on the role, we may have 1 to 3 technical sessions about follow-ups from what can develop from that code. So if we were talking about like a lead position, there's a few more interactions. If you're talking about a software engineer or even maybe a senior, we can figure out like in less sessions. Does that make sense, Tommy?
Oh yeah, perfect sense. And I love that. I can think about, a few of the code bases that I work in today where I can see conversations being really valuable, looking at like, here's how the code base evolved. Here's where we saw problems and taught each other and leaned on each other, so it can show teamwork plus, the growth of you as an engineer. So yeah, the answer made great sense.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you, Tom, for the question. I really appreciate it. Anyone else?
I'm just gonna read a comment here, Alberto, that I think was really interesting. So apparently, your bring your own code was a popular topic. I think that you spared a lot of pains for engineers, and I think for the hiring managers, that's going to help them assess, the soft skills as well as how well they communicate their ideas and how well they choose the trade-offs that they're willing to open as well.
Sheila,
So
let me tell you this. There was one candidate we interviewed, and in a very recent past, and recent past, when I say I'm talking like in a magnitude of like a couple of years, one of the feedback was I couldn't actually write the code during the interview process because I felt intimidated as we went through. And then like during the survey, the person explained and gave like some context. And I thought that was, well, I wasn't actually happy with the interview process that I had for my teams anyways. I was actually doing like a lot of like a home test exercise and all that kind of stuff, but then people wouldn't even apply for my position. So, oh my goodness. Okay, so let's take like the test home away and let's just bring, I would do like some, and then we had like the whole thing. Now at LawnStarter, when we would say, oh, if you're like doing XYZ, like in the context of LawnStarter, the person has no idea what I'm talking about. Now I said, okay, that's when like the idea of like bringing your own code. If you're not familiar because you don't have the context about the code that I'm talking about, so let's change it. I'm okay to be surprised, but if you can actually send me that like a day or two before the interview, so I can take a look at your code as well, that would be great. And that's where like this started. I don't know honestly about anyone else other than LawnStarter actually doing this. So if you actually try to do this, let me know how that goes. I did like a talk, this very same talk that I gave to you today, I gave in Vegas in a keynote last week. And got like so many questions and feedback about this approach. People were like at least curious to try, and I'm very curious to see how it goes if you decide to try it. So let me know.
Yeah, I think I'll try it next chance I get, and you'll definitely be the first person that I give the feedback to, other than the candidate.
Hey, listen, if it works, you please give me the thumbs up. If it doesn't work, you say that you read like it somewhere else, and it's on me.
And just another case that comes to mind as well. I mean, UbiMinds, we interview the candidates for positions, but we also interview them, to assess their experience and how that's been, right? And I remember a female candidate got to us and like she felt intimidated in some when you have a peer session, for example, right? It's already intimidating that you have 3 people to 1, but when it was 3 male managers interviewing, for her that was like an extra layer, right? She was already outnumbered. She was already it was already her second language, and third, you do have a glass ceiling going on. So again, whenever we can take off all this extra pressure and actually give people opportunity to flourish and to bring in, their knowledge, that's so good. They're just filtering through the noise.
Yeah. And the personality test is another thing that you may want to consider. It's been very, this one is the newest addition to the interview processes, but it's been very great. People come up like speaking their minds a little bit more comfortable, and it's been great. So with that, yes, thank you very much. Hugo, the plus in your name, it makes me remember there's a chapter in my book that talks about that. So good memories here. But anyways, thank you all. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, UbiMinds, for the opportunity. And thanks for partnering with me, because I probably shouldn't say this, but I think use is like the wrong word, but I partner or leverage a lot of the partnership to actually test things out, get some data. So I appreciate the openness and to allow me to try to do something better, to make like a more inclusive world, and so I can hire the best people. So thank you for that.
Well, likewise. I think that's the good thing about partnering up, and even among our customers as well, right? So maybe let's say one CDO is facing an issue and we are aware of another company that's doing really well in regards to that situation. Sometimes we can put you in contact as well, and then you can discuss in a circle of trust and make sure that you can get your issues sorted. So that's what we're all about. We learn together, and then we pull each other up. That's the goal. Yeah, so thanks everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you all. Cheers.